A bus arrived in the jungle, and the young people on board were all sent by their parents to a camp to undergo forced rehabilitation for internet addiction. In order to create a calm environment, the instructor ordered them to surrender all electronic devices. Then they were divided into different groups by drawing lots to complete assigned tasks. The assigned leaders had rich experience in wilderness survival. Their task was to hike in the forest for 3 days. Soon the group set off. But shortly after leaving, the guy with glasses noticed a deer carcass in the nearby bushes. After the leader's analysis, it was clear that the deer didn't die a natural death, but was attacked by some large carnivorous animal. At that moment, the guy with glasses said, 15,000 people go missing here every year, and 1/3 of them disappear in the forest. It's quite terrifying to think about it. Hearing this, Jane, filled with fear, looked towards the depths of the jungle. Comment name of first horror movie you watched. Jane, scared out of her wits, didn't know how to speak. The leader reassured everyone that there was no need to panic. Animals wouldn't attack humans unless provoked. Continued walking deeper into the jungle and found a clearing where they set up camp. Night fell quickly with the moon hanging high. After a long day of traveling, everyone fell asleep early, except the guy with the crew cut, who couldn't fall asleep, so he secretly snuck out of the tent and went to the lake. Alone, taking out his hidden phone, he started playing with it. But just then, a terrifying figure slowly approached him. Comment what makes you fear less while watching horror movies. The cannibal grabbed the sleeping bag on the ground and carry him away. The next morning, the group realized the crew cut guy was missing. So the leader decided to take Jane and the guy with glasses to search for him. Jack and Mary stayed behind to guard the camp. Soon the three of them arrived at a dilapidated cabin. Seeing no one around, they walked in without hesitation. Comment emojis appearing on screen if you can find. But as they entered, they discovered the inside was not only dirty and messy, but also covered in dust. As they wondered in confusion, strange sounds suddenly came from beneath the floor. Curiosity drove them to open a hidden door. A putrid smell hit their noses, but they pushed through the disgust and entered the basement. What they didn't expect was to find the crew cut guy there, in a horrifying state. Just then the cannibal returned home, leaving the three of them in shock. As the cannibal got closer and closer, in a critical moment, the leader mustered all her strength and successfully opened the basement window. Suggest what would you do if you are in such circumstances? Just as the last woman was about to climb out, the cannibal appeared in front of her with a scream. It was clear what had happened. Jane and the other guy ran away in fear. Meanwhile, on the other side, Jack and Mary were completely unaware. They were leisurely chatting by the river. Just then another cannibal suddenly appeared. Terrified, poor Mary became his meal on the spot. Startled by the sudden attack, Jack frantically fled into the forest. Soon he arrived at a church. He quickly went inside and told the priest everything, and asked for help in calling the police. But the priest, after dialing a random number, that the storm had cut off the phone line. There was no signal at all. Hearing this result, Jack cried in fear. The priest came over and comforted him, telling him not to be afraid. But just then, the broken landline suddenly rang. As Jack puzzled over it, the priest knocked him unconscious from behind. When Jack woke up, he found himself tied to a chair, with the priest sitting across from him, engaging in disgustingly inappropriate conversation. It turned out the priest was a sick pervert. Just as he was about to harm Jack, strange noises came from outside the house. When he went out to investigate, he found that the blender had been turned on. He looked around but found no trace of anyone. But then monster appeared. Meanwhile, Jack inside the house took the opportunity to free himself from the ropes. He immediately went to the window to check the situation outside, but what he saw shocked him. The cannibal had already caught up to this place. Terrified, he quickly hid in a nearby cabinet, but to his bad luck, cannibals found him. Jack became the cannibal's prey. Meanwhile, Jane and the other guy had already escaped to an elderly person's house. They explained everything to the old person, but instead of being shot, the old person calmly started talking about the events of the past. It turned out that 20 years ago, a single mother and her two young twin children lived here. Their lives were relatively peaceful, but one evening, the two brothers found a meteorite in the forest and brought it home. But that night, the meteorite began to release a large amount of liquid, causing the two children's bodies to undergo a transformation in the end. The mother also died at the hands of her two sons, and the old person in front of them was the mailman who delivered the letters. She also lost her legs because of that incident. After listening to the old person's story, Jane felt that she had to make a phone call for help, but the old person's house didn't have a telephone. With no other choice, the two of them decided to take a risk. They returned to the basement and took the phone from the crew cut guy. So they made a plan. First, the guy with glasses would create a noise to attract the monster's attention. While the cannibal left the basement, Jane quickly crawled inside. But just as she was searching for the phone, the cannibal suddenly returned. She tried to escape, but cannibal dragged her in. The girl was being choked by the monster. She was about to meet God. But just in the nick of time, the guy with glasses appeared and attacked the back of the cannibal. But due to the monster's tough skin and thick flesh, he couldn't harm him at all. Poor guy with glasses was instantly devoured by the cannibal. When Jane woke up and saw no one around, she quickly searched for the crew cut guy's phone, planning to call for help, but she found that the phone was out of battery. Looking at her companion's gruesome corpse, Jane cried in despair. After grieving, Jane composed herself. She decided to take a desperate gamble with the monster. She quietly took the cannibal's 40-meter machete from the cabinet, then carefully opened the secret door in the basement and made her way to their bedroom. Looking at one of the monsters sleeping, Jane felt a surge of anger and did something drastic. Afterwards, she quickly ran deep into the jungle, because she knew there was another monster that could come back at any moment. After running for who knows how long, she finally spotted a police car not far away. Policemen opened the door and helped her to calm down. The officer immediately drove her back to the police station. Jane's anxious heart finally found some relief, but as they were driving, the car seemed to hit something. The officer quickly opened the door and got out to check. Seeing this, Jane tried to crawl to the driver's seat, but all the windows were locked shut. She had no choice but to kick and shatter the glass. Then she opened the door from the inside and ran into the driver's seat just as the monster approached closer and closer. But the more nervous she got, the harder it was to start the car. Suddenly, the cannibal climbed onto the roof of the car. She tried hard. Finally, Jane managed to start the car and drove away. Because of the inertia, the cannibal rolled off the car. After driving a distance, Jane slammed on the brakes, then quickly shifted into reverse and drove straight back. In the end, Jane was alone in the police car. She cried tears of joy. She didn't know if she was happy or sad, but being alive was what mattered. But at night, two drunk men entered the jungle, and the monsters on the road stood up again. The other one in Jane's house miraculously came back to life. This meant that the endless cycle was still playing out.